Hi ladies and gentlemen, my name is Thabang, and I'm here to talk about firing all the managers. Controversial, right? But let me maybe rephrase that a bit for those who are a bit scared with what I just said. Basically, I mean all the managers who would rather be bosses than leaders. Now, I think it's clear to see that we've had quite a frustrating time over the past 18 months. It's been COVID, it's been vaccines, and it's also been getting used to actually buying tissue rolls that are not available during level 5. My personal tragedy, I lost my dad last year around October, got married in April of this year, and a few weeks after I actually lost my mother. Quite controversial, right? And very tragic. But that's the chaos that we live in. So what is this new normal of chaos that we can talk about? Well, for those who have not gotten married yet or found the perfect one, it's actually seeing someone you love and you like through the mask. But what is this new normal for us? Besides just being told to put on a mask, no matter what it means, or to actually work remotely for 8 hours, when we actually know 8 hours becomes 16 very quickly. Offices are getting empty, people are not there, and it almost has this vacuum feel where traditionally it would have been people are out for a jowl or at a BBD event, but now it's everybody's probably sitting half dressed on their couches. But what remains consistent throughout this time is if you've had a bad boss, they're probably still as bad as before. Now, the question is, with all these dynamics, where do we see ourselves? How do we make it better for each other and for our employees to be better, to be more productive, and to actually be motivated? The remote employee, we connect virtually. That is the reality of what we have. Staying at home, trying to stay away from everyone, and of course having that big red sign outside the door that says, do not go out without your mask. The reality is working from home is not as basic as it seems. From having your kids tied up near you, just so they can keep quiet, to having a few climb up over you and within focus, no matter what background you put on Teams. But the remote employee has changed. We don't waste any more time sitting in traffic, figuring out how to get home because we're actually tired of all the taxis who've used the yellow lane. We're more focused on just being half dressed, just enough for the camera to be in focus on you. And of course, the age-old ESCOM, the perfect timing that it always has during your most important meeting. And we've actually become quite big members of the Wimpy Club just because they always have the good Wi-Fi. Now, Maslow's hierarchy of needs used to look at physiological needs as part of the biggest needs that we have. But remote has changed that. The biggest need we have now is a stable internet connection. Even though we'd say we'd have the perfect workplace station, some of us actually sit on top of our kitchen counters and work while we're cooking. But what does this remote working provide to us? What are the challenges that we have? Now, a recent study looked at some of the challenges that remote working actually has. And some of them include motivation, distractions at home, collaboration and communication, and also just taking vacation time. You guys are aware of that. And finding reliable Wi-Fi. Now, we have a few common South African problems with this. If you don't have internet connection because you're probably on Vumatel, or Joburg Water decided that you need to go buy water from Pick n Pay, or the age-old famous ESCOM perfect timing where you wake up to the darkness. This can get a bit overwhelming, and sometimes it feels like you should take a break, but where can you go? Now, burnout has become quite a reality during these times of frustration, where it almost feels like when somebody contacts you on Teams, they're actually out to find out if you're online. Burnout is common amongst a lot of IT specialists as well, because like I said earlier, an 8-hour day gets very quickly to a 16-hour day. Sometimes we ask, where are our team members? Where is the leader? Where are our managers during this time of chaos? Well, Martin Luther King describes a leader as someone who not just leads us through the calm times, but is actually the best leader during the times of challenge and controversy. Now, we all have known Ramaphosa's stint with the mosque, but he wasn't the only one. So he was led through it. But what does this new age leader look like? Well, we can have the right mindset. There's a particular mindset we want to have, the right behavior, which actually gives rise to the right actions and the right performance and results at the end of the day. But what are the common oops that we do? What are the common mistakes as leaders and managers that we've almost learned how to do, but now we have to unlearn how to do? One of them is actually leading the team before everybody joins in. It's very easy for us to say we want to do this without actually having the whole team agree to it. So moving with the team. Another thing is not listening to your people. Reach out to a manager. We tend to sometimes get so busy, so sold up in meetings, and having 3 meetings at the same time, we actually never make time to listen to our people. Adapt. Like I said, the times have changed. Whereas you were used to the nice comfy chair at the office, consistent electricity connection, and always being online. As I've said earlier, times have changed. We have Eskom basically changing that game for us, and actually just having those resources to adapt to as you work from home. Not seeing the bigger picture. It's very easy for us to chase deadlines, chase timelines, with actually forgetting our people and what they want and where do they see themselves, not just from a work perspective, but actually just from a personal skills perspective. And being the boss. Sometimes it's very easy to marshal people, get them to do it right, shout at them. But is this the way it should be? Will this survive in the new normal? I think you can all agree that we survive in a time of chaos, with the examples I just gave through. But some companies have managed to overcome this chaos and become better and greater. Netflix, TikTok, Amazon, Spotify, they've managed to turn sales around and actually increase their sales just based on the financial results that they've published. But what did they use? Now, Deloitte actually uses something that they call chaos becomes opportunity, where they say if you react and you recover and you thrive, no matter what state of chaos you're in, you can actually come out of it better. Now, responding and recovering and thriving seems like very simple 3-step process to everything. But how do we achieve that? Where is this example? I'm going to give you a quick story about Checkers 6060. A few years ago, not too long ago, of course, Checkers actually saw a bit of a dip in their sales and a bit of a dip in their projected financial statements. So what did they do? The leaders of Eskom, besides just that mad rush of level 5 shopping that, like I said, tissue rolls became quite a big necessity of the time. Empty Pick and Pay, empty ShopRite, empty any shop you wanted to get food, because everybody had just began this panic buying of everything that they wanted. So what did Checkers think of? Well, shops became empty because it was either you were scared to get COVID or you were scared of South African National Defence Force. Well, how did they battle against competitors? Actually, ShopRite became a bit of the underdogs there, because some of their competitors actually started introducing this free delivery and delivering through Uber and all these other take-home delivery services. So Checkers then responded. How did they respond? They invested 18% more into their IT spend and data spend, and actually wanted to find out, besides just being Checkers that is everybody, that every location and township usually has as a ShopRite you save, how do they get this right? And How do they target the higher end market and compete against companies like Woolworths? As Peter Engelbrecht, who's the CEO, says, he thought of actually re-platforming the whole thing, facilitating and fast-tracking the digital transformation and a strategy that looks at the future now. This gave rise to ShopRite X. If you guys don't know what it is, ShopRite X is a division within ShopRite that's solely responsible for their IT and digital solutions. ShopRite X came up with Checkers 6060, getting groceries to you quicker probably than most Ubers and most Mr. Delivery apps can do. This changed the game for ShopRite. They started actually seeing more sales growth versus other retailers as the app continued to rise. What they also saw was that people actually started ordering liquor. We all know level 4 and level 5 made up a bit of that thirst, but Checkers actually took advantage of that with huge specials, and I can have that bottle within 60 minutes at my door. Actually, what happened is as the levels decreased, a lot of the ShopRite Checkers management thought, hang on, will this Checkers 6060 survive? But what actually happened is as the levels decreased and people could go to the shops, they were so used to just having that convenience, and actually they saw more orders coming in through the apps. And what did this give rise to? Higher dividends, shares, everybody with a smile on their face. But not just that. Actually, ShopRite created about 4,000 jobs during this massive time that job losses were happening. So, what's next for the Store X? What's next for ShopRite? If you haven't heard, there's something coming that's called Checkers Rush. No tills, no question about do you want a plastic. Quick, easy, out of the shop if you need that speed. But what are these common traits that the ShopRite X and division and ShopRite got right? Communication. I think one of the key things that they outline in their statements and in their results is they had to clearly communicate what the company was getting into, what the company wanted to, and actually align their employees to that, and actually garner them to have the same motivation. Workplace flexibility. ShopRite actually allowed people to work anywhere, everywhere, without any need of resources, as they actually even provided them with water during Joburg water days. Social responsibility. As mentioned earlier, ShopRite actually contributed quite a lot to the job market, as unemployment is quite a real thing in South Africa. Just that note of them creating a job, creating 4,000 jobs, people started taking notice and trying to understand what did they do right. Resourcefulness. Yeah, sure, they were making sales during that crazy hyper buying of tissue rolls, but they also thought, what after that? How do we survive in a world which is remote and everybody is just at home? Creativity as well. A lot of the guys had to become creative. How do we not just become a Uber Eats? How do we become different from what is out there? This gives rise to what I think is resilient leadership. Leadership that takes whatever comes their way and actually makes a success out of it. So what is this resilient leadership? So one of the key things about resilient leadership is actually balancing out, thinking through the mind and the heart. Now, getting that fine balance might be quite a bit of a trick for all of us, but once you do get it right, things seem to go the way they should. Remembering that you are with people and you are with a team. Resilient leaders never forget that no matter who is left behind, the team never moves forward until everyone is here. And that's the key part of being a resilient leader. Own it. No matter what challenges come your way, just starting by owning it gives you the right state of mind to actually go and find the solution to it. Seeing the bigger picture. One of the oops we discussed earlier is never seeing that bigger picture. And it's quite important for resilient leadership to see that through this chaos or through whatever challenge comes their way, How do they steer not just themselves, not just the business, but their people forward? Now, I think we can all say working remotely has its challenges, as we've spoken about, because even though sometimes we feel like, yeah, we can push an 8-hour day, sometimes we do take those very important power naps throughout the day. And that leads to something that I normally discuss a lot with people around me, is trust. I believe, do you trust your people that they are actually working? Or are you a timekeeper and you always want to check if they're online? How do you maintain this trust? How do you get your employees to actually trust in not just you, but in themselves? You need to create a calm and relaxed working environment, a safe space for people to actually do their jobs. We need to have a bit of empathy. As I've explained, we live in a time of chaos. Some of us have gone through a lot of grief, a lot of loss, and it's quite important that even if as individuals we haven't gone through that ourselves, but to actually understand where people are coming from. Always remain optimistic. Nothing beats a smile over a frown. If somebody approaches you with no matter whatever problem they come with, if you remain optimistic, that instills a bit of trust in, I can trust that this guy will just cheer me up by just talking to me. Build your trust. It's very hard as a manager, as many of you know, to build trust among your team. Because some people just believe you're that boss that always shouts. But as you actually get to know your people and you build the trust, it becomes very easy for them to actually understand your vision. Be honest. The one thing that we need to make sure as leaders and as people is we are honest. If honestly speaking, you are burning out or you do have a problem that you need fixing or you need support on, it's quite key for us to be honest and transparent about it and actually have these off the work, off task chats just around how everyone's doing. Have constant feedback within the team, just about not just the work we do, just around, are you comfortable? Do you actually need a work chair? Do you need a work table? How good is your internet? And one of the things that BBD has done well is actually provide an avenue where people can have, when that ESCOM hits us, can actually have a better way to actually stay online. Make sure that your feedback and your communication is directed. It's very frustrating, and I think most of us know, when somebody actually wants to say something but says it indirectly. That is actually one of the oops of leadership. Have directed feedback and give it well, of course, being empathetic and optimistic at the same time. Loyalty. Now, everybody says, I want this loyal team. And yes, I am loyal to my team. But is it true your loyalty? And how do we achieve this loyalty? We need to make sure that we trust in being together. That no matter what happens, even if for some odd reason you get hit by a bus, your team is enabled and has the right tools and skills to take it further. We need to also make sure that we draw the line. In getting to understand through this chaos, it's quite important to give people their space. Now, sometimes we want to say, be online from 8 to 5, or be online for my stand-up. But the reality is, chaos exists, change happens, things happen. Now we need to be very wary of understanding that and also draw the line in the space we give our employees, not just in their work environments, but in their personal spaces. We need to create a psychologically safe environment. What I mean is, if someone is actually not able to make a meeting, they shouldn't feel like they have to actually climb up Mount Kilimanjaro to make it to a meeting. You need to create a space where people can communicate their frustrations and their problems. We need to avoid, as I said earlier, being timekeepers. There's nothing worse than, why were you not online at a certain time? That is actually one of the bad things that managers do. And I think we all are guilty of it at some point, and we need to change that. We need to make our team follow in our footsteps. Put our best foot forward. We cannot just tell people or actually advise people to do something when we ourselves cannot do it or are not the best examples of it. This brings me to my next point, instincts. We all have this, my instincts will save the day or the world. But sometimes these instincts actually become negative in how we communicate with our team. COVID happened, not just the only chaos. A lot of things happened. But some of the instincts we have is to wait things out. Give it time. Let's see actually how bad it is. Now, sometimes that creates anxiety, not just within yourself and with the people that you're working with. Another thing is keeping quiet. Not sharing a lot with your team, whether around the challenges that you're facing or whether the company is facing, actually creates a bit of tension and awkwardness, and probably discussions where people are bringing up conclusions that are not the case. Staying the course. If we do ABC in 1987, we do it that way now. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes many managers that we have as managers, where if we know how to do things right, that is the only way how to do them. But how do we balance everything? How do we balance this work, this life, and this chaos? We have to have a bit of self-management ourselves. So this is beyond just being a manager. This is just being you and actually being in a corporate environment. It's quite important to take work off the desk breaks. These are breaks that you either go to the shops, actually just take a walk, or even just actually get to understand how does your your yard look? Because some of us have recently discovered during COVID, that we actually do have a backyard. You have to be proactive. Do not wait for things to happen. Part of self-management is anticipating the chaos so that by the time it comes, it gives you opportunity. And also, how do we manage the work after we've managed ourselves? Preparation is key. The more we prepare for meetings, the more we prepare for our days, it actually starts to become easier. I know during level 5 it was a bit of a frantic act, because some of us are so used to having that morning alarm clock to escape the traffic. Now it's getting your right clock, getting the clock to actually wake you up so that you can just lift your head enough for stand-up. But preparation is key for that. Understanding how your day looks for tomorrow and actually making time for those cool-off breaks and breaks to just interact with your team on a more softer and a more gentler level. Because we all know that the frustration of sitting behind a laptop for more than a few hours actually does decrease your productivity and actually just give you that less of a motivated pull to the day. Because at the end of the day, we need to remain connected as if we're sitting next to each other. But we need to make that become natural and not forced. One of the studies actually showed that as a meeting actually becomes longer, it becomes less effective. People listen less, and people start probably fidgeting with their phone, or again with their dog, because you cannot see what is going on under there. This creates a broken line. Now, broken line is something that's very common during this remote world that we live in, where people seem disconnected, and it almost seems like I cannot talk to this person as I used to anymore at the bar or while we're making coffee. Now, how do we sort out this broken line? We need to create frequent touch points where we just talk about basic random things. One of the things that we've been fortunate in our team is actually create something we call coffee sessions. So at the end of every day, just find out how you're feeling. Even if some of the words are not really pleasing to hear, but it actually just gives people a space to just vent out. Ensure consistent participation across all people in the team. We have seen that there are a lot of people that have zoned out and probably just gone into the background during this chaos. And it's quite important to ensure that everyone participates and everyone gets an equal opportunity to be part of the team. Have time to actually go for fun, have team buildings. With the lockdown regulations being eased, it's quite important for us as leaders to understand the importance of team buildings. Even if it's just for a beer or it's just to run around the golf course and try to find out who can reach the 18th hole the fastest. Now I've said a lot. Some of you guys are thinking, where do I go from here? I may have identified a few things that I need to work on. So what is next? I think we need to do a lot of introspection. What are our beliefs? What are some of the beliefs and values we need to change? We also need to do a bit of retrospection, where we look at the past, what we could have done better, what we could have learned from what happened. We also need to be honest about this. There's nothing worse than trying to seem right, because it doesn't really solve anything. As much as some people might believe leaders are different or managers are not just that normal human being, we are actually part of the team, and we are actually part of the whole business together. As Margaret J. Wheatley said, without reflection, we go blindly on our own way, creating more unintended consequences and failing to achieve anything useful. So what is this leader and manager? What is the difference between those two? Now, a lot of us might have the tools of Leonidas. We might have 300 soldiers and believe that is the way to go. But probably the leader now is someone who just makes sure they have a shirt, even if they're just wearing boxes. The key thing to always understand, we need to strive to be leaders and not bosses, because there's a difference between a boss and a leader, just in how you communicate with the team and being part of the team rather than you being a manager of a team. So what is the difference? Managers tell people to work, while leaders work with the people. I think it's quite, you've probably realized that I've used people a lot. I think in closing, we are all individuals, we all have our struggles, we all have our little chaos happening in our own world. But the key thing to understand is, if we all lead and manage ourselves and other people with the right tools and skill sets in this new chaos, we can get it right. Thank you.